I never thought I'd have to fight my own family for something that's been in my blood for as long as I can remember. I'm Isabella Harper, and for as long as I can remember, Harper Industries was the center of my world. I grew up in that building, running through the hallways as a little girl while my parents and older brother Garrett made decisions that shaped the company. I loved every bit of it, the meetings, the numbers, the sense that we were building something that mattered. But somewhere along the way, they decided I didn't belong. I remember the first time it really hit me. I was 16, sitting in the boardroom with my father, watching him argue with Garrett about an upcoming merger. I raised my hand and said, "Maybe we should consider looking at smaller partnerships first. It could be safer for our reputation." My father looked at me, his eyes narrowing, and said, "Isabella, sweetheart, this isn't for someone like you. Stick to the small stuff. Leave the big decisions to those who can handle them." It stung more than I expected. I loved my family, but I couldn't help noticing the way their eyes always glossed over me in meetings, the way they laughed at my suggestions or brushed them aside as cute but naive. My brother Garrett, he's sharp, I'll give him that. But his smirk every time I tried to point out a better approach felt like salt in a wound. Over the years, I watched them treat me like I was fragile, incapable, a child playing in a grown-up world. But I wasn't fragile. I wasn't weak. I spent nights poring over financial reports, learning the ins and outs of every department, staying late just to make sure I understood the business better than anyone. I made mistakes, sure, but I learned from them. And still, every time I brought something to the table, they dismissed me. I wanted to scream to say, "I am ready. I am capable. Don't underestimate me." But I swallowed the words and kept working quietly, building my knowledge, my experience, my plan. It wasn't just about proving them wrong anymore. It was about claiming what was always mine, my family's legacy, the company I loved, and the respect I deserved. People asked me why I stayed so calm when they ignored me, why I didn't fight back sooner. The answer is simple. I had to wait. I had to gather my strength, my proof, my patience. Because revenge, real revenge, isn't about anger. It's about timing. Now standing here, ready to take on the fight I should have been allowed to fight all along, I feel a mix of fear and excitement. Fear, because going against your family is never easy, and excitement, because this is finally my chance to step out from the shadows. I'm not the scared girl they thought I was. I'm not the weak daughter who should step aside. I'm Isabella Harper, and for the first time in years, I'm about to take what's rightfully mine. I can feel my heart racing, my hands trembling just a little, but I'm ready. This isn't just about a company. It's about proving to myself and to them that I am strong, capable, and unstoppable. And whatever happens in that courtroom, I know this. I will no longer be ignored. I will no longer be underestimated. I will finally be seen. Growing up in the Harper household wasn't always easy, even though from the outside, people thought we had it all. Money, influence, a family business that everyone admired. It looked perfect. But behind closed doors, it was a constant battle for recognition, especially for me. My parents and Garrett made it clear over and over that I wasn't cut out for leadership. They said I was too soft, too emotional, too inexperienced. I remember sitting in the living room one evening, my father pacing back and forth, arguing with Garrett about some new investment plan. I had spent weeks researching it, thinking I could offer a fresh perspective. "Dad, maybe we should consider a slower expansion. The numbers show some risks if we rush this," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He stopped and looked at me, his eyes hard. "Isabella, you don't understand business like we do. You're dreaming. Stick to what you're good at, which is, well, nothing really important yet." The words hit me like a punch. Garrett smirked from the corner as if to say, "See? You don't belong here." That moment stayed with me. Every family dinner, every meeting, even casual conversations seemed to remind me of my place, or rather, my lack of one. I tried not to let it get to me, but it was everywhere. My ideas were ignored. My efforts were overlooked. Sometimes I caught my mother rolling her eyes when I spoke up, whispering to Garrett, "She means well, but she's just not ready." But I refused to let their opinions define me. When they doubted me, I doubled down. I spent late nights in the office after everyone left, reading contracts, memorizing company policies, learning every detail about every department. I watched how Garrett made decisions, how Dad negotiated with clients, how Mom handled the board. I learned from them without them realizing it, building my own knowledge quietly, brick by brick. There were times when I felt completely alone in the fight for respect. I'd sit in the office kitchen staring at my laptop thinking, do they even see me? Do they even care? And the answer was usually no. But that loneliness fueled me. It made me more determined. I wasn't just working to prove them wrong. I was preparing to claim what I deserved. And it wasn't just about the business. It was about respect, about being recognized as more than the little girl who doesn't belong in the boardroom. I knew I had to be smarter, sharper, stronger. Every dismissal, every laugh at my expense became a lesson in patience and strategy. By the time I reached my mid-20s, I had learned more than they could ever imagine. I knew the company inside out. I knew its weaknesses, its strengths, its potential. And I knew that when the time came, I wouldn't just fight for my place, I would take it. Because all those years of being underestimated, that was my fuel. That was what made me unstoppable. The day I stepped into the courtroom, I felt a weight I had carried for years settle onto my shoulders. It wasn't just a building filled with strangers and legal papers. It was the stage where my family would finally show their true colors. Garrett sat at the front, smirking like he'd already won. My father had that look of arrogance, the one that said he believed no one could challenge him. And my mother, she just sat there, folding her hands neatly, pretending calm, but I could see the tension in her jaw. The judge called the session to order, and I felt my stomach twist. When it was my family's turn to speak, the words they said cut sharper than any knife I had ever felt. "Your Honor, Isabella Harper has no right to this company," Garrett began, his voice smooth but cold. "She's contributed nothing of significance. The company has been run by people who understand business, not by someone who was merely born into it." I could feel my hands clench under the table. My father leaned forward, his tone clipped and decisive. "She's never been prepared to lead. We've been patient, but the reality is clear. She's too inexperienced, too soft to manage Harper Industries. Granting her ownership would be reckless." I listened. Every word was designed to belittle me, to erase the years I had spent working, learning, and proving myself. But I didn't interrupt. I stayed calm. I had learned long ago that anger wouldn't win this battle. Patience and evidence would. When they paused, I finally spoke. "Your Honor," I began, my voice steady but firm. "I've dedicated my life to this company. I know every department, every policy, every contract. I've made decisions, solved problems, and handled situations that many in this room wouldn't even understand." "I've earned my place," the courtroom murmured. Garrett's smirk faltered for a moment. My father's eyes narrowed, and even my mother's face twitched slightly. I could see the cracks forming in their confident fronts. I felt a surge of power, not out of revenge yet, but out of truth. Finally, my truth was being heard. Then came the witnesses. People who had worked with me, who had seen my contributions firsthand, gave testimony. They spoke of projects I had led, deals I had saved, and decisions I had made that kept the company afloat during challenging times. Each story I had gathered, each piece of proof I had meticulously prepared, slowly dismantled the image my family tried to paint of me. I could see the shift in the room. The judge leaned forward, studying me, studying them. My family's confidence was faltering. Their arguments meant to crush me were starting to crumble under the weight of truth. And as I looked at them sitting there, faces pale and tense, I realized that the betrayal they had orchestrated for years, the whispers, the dismissals, the undermining, was about to be exposed. This was the moment when the tables were beginning to turn. I wasn't just a victim of their betrayal anymore. I was about to become the person who made them face the consequences of underestimating me. The moment I had been waiting for finally came when it was our turn to present the truth. I sat up straighter, every nerve in my body awake, my heart pounding so loud I thought the whole courtroom could hear it. My lawyer, Mr. Daniels, stood and began calmly laying out the evidence we had collected. Every document, every record, every signed approval with my name on it, it all painted a picture that couldn't be ignored. Your Honor, he said firmly, holding up a thick folder, these are company contracts negotiated and closed by Ms. Isabella Harper. These records clearly prove her direct involvement in major decisions that shaped Harper Industries in recent years. I watched the judge lean forward as the papers were handed over. Garrett shifted uncomfortably in his chair, tapping his pen against the table like he wanted to crawl out of his own skin. My father's jaw tightened, and for the first time, he didn't look so sure of himself. Then came the testimonies. One by one, people I had worked with took the stand. A department head spoke about the nights I stayed late to help fix failing projects. A senior manager explained how I had personally handled negotiations that saved the company millions. Another witness recalled how I had stepped in during a crisis when no one else, not even Garrett, could find a solution. As I listened, I felt tears sting my eyes, not from sadness, but from validation. Finally, everything I had poured into this company, every sleepless night, every ignored suggestion, every moment of being dismissed, it was all being spoken out loud where they couldn't silence me. When it was my turn to testify, I stood up, smoothing my jacket, and walked to the stand. My legs felt heavy, but my voice came out strong. I've been called weak, unprepared, incapable, I said, looking straight at my family. But I have lived and breathed this company. I've worked harder than anyone ever gave me credit for. I know Harper Industries better than anyone in this room, because while you tried to push me aside, I was learning, growing, and building my strength in silence. For once, the room was silent. No interruptions, no laughter, no smirks, just silence. I looked at the judge and added, all I want is what is rightfully mine. My name is on this legacy too, and I will not let it be erased. I walked back to my seat, and for the first time, Garrett wouldn't meet my eyes. My mother fidgeted with her necklace, and my father stared at the floor. The power had shifted. They felt it, and so did I. Revenge didn't come with shouting or gloating. It came with calm, undeniable truth. Piece by piece, I had dismantled their lies, and the look on their faces told me they finally knew they had lost. This was my moment, and I wasn't letting it slip away. The air in that courtroom felt heavy, like the whole world was holding its breath. I sat there, my palms pressed against the polished wood of the table, trying to keep my hands from trembling. Every word had been spoken, every piece of evidence laid out, every argument made. All that was left now was the judge's decision. I glanced at my family. Garrett leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, a faint smirk still tugging at his mouth like he believed he could charm his way out of the truth. My father sat stiff, his face a mask of stone, but I could see the tension in the way his jaw kept twitching. My mother wouldn't even look at me. Her eyes were fixed on the floor, like she already knew what was coming and couldn't bear to face it. The judge adjusted his glasses, flipping through the papers one last time. Every second dragged like an hour. My heart was racing so fast I thought I might pass out, but I forced myself to breathe. I had fought too hard, waited too long to fall apart now. Finally, the judge looked up. His voice was steady, but each word felt like a hammer striking steel. After reviewing all evidence and testimony presented, this court finds that Isabella Harper is the rightful owner of Harper Industries. For a moment, the room froze. It was like no one even breathed. And then the gavel came down with a sharp crack that echoed through the walls. That sound, loud, final, undeniable, felt like thunder rolling through my chest. I turned my head, almost in slow motion, to see my family's reaction. Garrett's smirk vanished instantly. His mouth opened, but no words came out. His face flushed red, then pale, like he couldn't decide whether to shout or crumble. My father leaned forward, his hands gripping the table so tight his knuckles turned white, but there was nothing he could say. And my mother, she just shook her head, eyes glassy, lips pressed together, as if the ground had been ripped from beneath her. In that instant, I felt something shift inside me. For years I had carried their doubt, their insults, their rejection like a weight on my back. And now in one ruling, that weight was gone. I wasn't weak. I wasn't incapable. I was victorious. The judge's words still rang in my ears. The rightful owner. Mine. Not theirs. Mine. I straightened in my seat, lifting my chin, meeting their shocked stares with a calm I had never felt before. They had tried to erase me, tried to strip away everything I had worked for. But now they had to sit there, silent, powerless, while the truth stood tall in front of them. The gavel had slammed down, but what echoed louder than that sound was the silence of my family. A silence filled with disbelief, anger, and defeat. And for the first time, I realized they could never take this away from me again. When the judge's words finally sank in, I sat there for a moment, letting it wash over me. My chest rose and fell slowly, like I'd been holding my breath for years and was finally allowed to breathe. I didn't rush. I didn't smile or cheer or celebrate. I just let the silence speak for me. My family shifted in their seats, but I didn't bother to look at them right away. I wanted them to sit in it, to feel the emptiness of losing, the sting of watching me rise. I pushed back my chair and stood up, my heels clicking softly against the courtroom floor. The sound echoed in the silence, louder than any words could. I straightened my jacket, lifted my chin, and walked toward the aisle. Every step felt like a victory march, steady and unshakable. When I finally turned my head just briefly, I saw them. Garrett's face was pale, his hands gripping the edge of the table as though holding on to the last bit of control he thought he had. My father stared down at the wood grain, unable to meet my eyes. His shoulders slumped in a way I had never seen before. And my mother, she looked smaller, diminished, like the weight of her silence had finally caught up to her. For once, none of them had anything to say. No sharp words, no cutting remarks, no dismissive laughter. Just silence. I let that image burn into my memory as I walked past them. Not out of cruelty, but because I wanted to remember the moment I stopped being the girl they underestimated and became the woman they could never ignore again. Outside the courthouse, the air felt different, fresher, warmer. The afternoon sun hit my face, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free. People passed by on the sidewalk, some glancing at me, some not even noticing, but none of that mattered. What mattered was that I had done it. I had stood up to them. I had won. I paused at the top of the courthouse steps, closing my eyes for just a second. The sounds of the city filled my ears, car horns, chatter, the wind carrying bits of conversation, and it all felt alive in a way it hadn't before. I wasn't carrying their doubt anymore. I wasn't shrinking under their shadows. I was standing in the sunlight, completely my own. As I walked down the steps, I felt lighter, stronger. My heels clicked against the stone, and with every sound, I reminded myself, this is mine now. My voice, my company, my life. Behind me, they remained in that courtroom, sitting in their silence, watching everything they had tried to take from me slip through their fingers. Ahead of me stretched the future, wide open, waiting, full of if you felt my journey. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss more stories of revenge, drama, and strength. And I'd love to hear your own stories in the comments. Let's build this space together, Ability. And as I took that first deep breath of freedom, I knew I would never let anyone silence me again.